Guys, hear me out. This could be bad for college football.
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into Locked On Aggies. I'm your host, Andrew Stefaniak. Thanks for making Locked On Aggies your first listen every single day. And today we're going to be breaking down some of this conference realignment news. So, a big part of the excitement surrounding the two teams joining the SEC, with those teams, of course, being Oklahoma and Texas, is the Lone Star Showdown is coming back. Well, a recent breaking news segment from Brandon Marcello kind of makes it seem like there's a 50-50 chance that that doesn't become a reality. So let's break down what this article from Marcello, great writer, love everything he's got going on. Let's check out what this article he had said and how it's going to affect Texas A&M and how it's going to affect college football. So there have been two things proposed, two ideas as to how to manage this realignment. The first is the one that's going to affect the Lone Star Showdown, and that would be an 8-game conference season with one protected rival that is a permanent rival that's going to be played every single year. The second scenario is a 9-game conference slate where there would be 3 permanent rivals, protected games. In the first of those two scenarios, the 8-game one protected rival, what Brandon Marcello wrote is that the Aggies would not have Texas be their yearly showdown for the rival game. If we were to go about it with this 9-game, 3 same team every year rivalry kind of situation, the Aggies would play Texas every single year. So looking at this and reading this number out loud, the problem I have here is this is bad for college football. The most fun thing about college football is the rivalries. I think everybody can agree on that. We haven't had the Texas A&M rivalry, the Lone Star Showdown, since Texas A&M joined the SEC. Over 10 years now, we haven't seen that game played. One of the most fun games in college football. You know, you got your rivalries, you got your Iron Bowl, you've got your Michigan versus Ohio State. These games are what make college football so fun. And there was a lot of excitement surrounding college football that hopefully with conference realignment, we would have the Lone Star Showdown every single year. And I think if you go about this 9-game, 3 teams that you're going to play every single year, you can maintain and keep some of these rivalries. I think it's good for college football. You know, I mean, then I know like Auburn, Georgia's a rivalry is a good one. LSU, Ole Miss. These are the ones that the document had. If they go with the 1 game every year, these rivalries are done for. And those would be LSU, Ole Miss, Florida, Tennessee, Auburn, Georgia, and Bama, Tennessee. If you go about it with this 8 conference game schedule, 1 permanent rival schedule, you're going to lose a lot of fun football games that are played every single year. I don't think that's good. I don't think that's good. Growing up in these rivalries, growing up in the Lone Star Showdown, growing up around the Iron Bowl or the Governor's Cup with Kentucky and Louisville or the Egg Bowl, these are the games that people circle on their calendar. People are excited about the whole year. I mean, heck, up there up in the north, you got Ohio State and Michigan. They won't even if you say the other team's name, you're going to get in a fist fight with somebody. This is what makes the game that we all love so fun, is these rivalries. And if they're not protected, it's gonna rain down on the SEC. I think it could lead to potential a drop off in some viewership. Not big. I mean, everyone's gonna watch college football. We can't sit here and act like we're gonna boycott college football, but there's gonna be some negative repercussions, I think, around the conference due to these changes. So, of course, if these changes are made, it's going to eliminate the divisions, the East and the West divisions of the SEC, and they would go about it 1 or 2 ways. And this is just football. That's the part that's crazy, is how they're going to go about this with basketball and baseball and There's a lot to figure out in all that, in all these different sports that we care about as Texas A&M fans. There's a lot to see how they're going to kind of fix this. But I think many were excited to know that the Lone Star Showdown was going to be back. And I think it's going to lead to a lot of upset Longhorn and Aggie fans to know that this game potentially might not be in every season thing. Now, the document written by Marcelo also said that people are leaning toward this 9-game conference schedule with the 3 permanent rivals. I think that's a good thing. I think if you do that, I think it keeps a lot of these rivalries alive. And that's where they're leaning right now. But the other side of it, like I said, there's been conversations. It could go either way. The majority of the SEC teams are voting, because everyone gets a say, are voting for this 9-game schedule. A lot of SEC teams have actually left room on their 2024, 5, 6 schedules for an extra conference game. So what that means to me is I think at the end of the day, the SEC is going to get this right. You got to think they understand how important these rivalry games are to the brand and to college football and how much money they bring in. So I don't think they're going to get rid of it. I think it's going to be something they go with the smart route, which is the 9-game, 3 permanent rival route, which keeps these different rivalries I just read in play, as well as the Texas A&M game. But now talking a little bit about the rivalry, it's all time. Texas has the lead, 76. They're 76, 37, and 5 all time. So the Longhorns have the lead in the all time series. It was played from 1915 to 2011, which of course stopped in 2012 when Texas A&M became a part of the SEC. So we haven't seen, like I said, this rivalry in over 10 years now. And it's exciting to know that it is back now. The one positive thing you can take away, if the SEC does go with this alternative route and go with the 8-game, 1 permanent opponent, you're still going to play Texas. And I don't know how they'll do that, if it's every 2 years, every 4, whatever. You're going to play Texas every once in a while. It's not like how it had been where you pretty much don't play them. You're going to play them every once in a while. So the rivalry will be back. The question is, will it be back on a yearly basis, or will it be back on an every couple year basis? That's the question that's going to be raised when the SEC makes these decisions, which are going to have to be made relatively soon, as Oklahoma and Texas are on their way into the SEC soon. Now, the one opponent that could be the permanent rival for Texas A&M, I've kind of, you kind of chop it up and you look like, okay, they're not going to get rid of Auburn, Bama. They're not going to get rid of some of these, different big time rivalries. They're going to have some of that stuff stay in place. I think the 2 teams that I could see being the one permanent rival for the Aggies be like Arkansas or LSU. Those are the 2 teams that I've kind of chopped down and see, like, I don't know who they would match up with if they went with this one permanent rival method. So those are the teams that I think the Aggies could be locked up with if they go with this 8-game method. I do think at the end of the day, the SEC is going to make the correct decision and go with a 9-game schedule where you keep 3 permanent rivals, because like I've said, rivalries are good for the sport. They're good for college football. And I think at the end of the day, the SEC is going to make the decision that is best for the conference, best for the fans, and best for the teams. And that is to keep these, to, rejuvenate a rivalry like the Lone Star Showdown and some other different things when these teams join the SEC. The SEC is going to make the right decision, even though right now it's a bit in question. What are some of the money lines looking like for Texas A&M's football games this season? We're going to talk about that, but first, I want to tell you about our friends over at Built Bar. Built Bar protein bars are the best protein bars I have ever tasted in my life. What I love so much about them, not only are they covered in chocolate, but is the fact that they don't taste like a protein bar. A lot of times protein bars, I don't like them. I was even skeptical of Built at first. And then as soon as I tasted my first one, I said, wow. And now I've been eating them on a pretty constant basis. They're really good. 130 calories, only 4 grams of sugar with 17 grams of protein. You can find them at Sam's Club, Walmart, and of course, Built.com. These protein bars are awesome. They taste great and they're good for you. You have to go give these guys a chance. Head over to Built.com. You are not going to regret it. Yeah, so some of the money lines came out for Texas A&M's schedule. If you check the ESPN app, you'll find some of these numbers. And not all games. Let me count here. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 games of the 12 games that are out already have money lines. Now, some games like the game against Abilene Christian at the tail end of the season, that game's not going to have a money line because you have to assume it's going to be something like minus 37 or, for the Aggies. And bet makers don't like to make those odds until things kind of play out. So you only have a handful of games. But let's run through it and see what the Aggies got going on. Who are they supposed to beat? Who's supposed to beat them? And maybe everybody can throw some money where their mouth is on some of these numbers. So the first game against New Mexico at home for the Aggies, Texas A&M is a minus 38-point favorite in this game, of course. Big line there. I always get scared, throwing money down on these because then you wonder, it's the first game of the year. What's the offense going to look like? Or are they going to put in some backups and the scoring goes down if they get a big lead, whatever. But it's good to see the Aggies with a bit, a high point total favorite because, it has to mean people think that the offense is going to be able to put up a lot of points, which I think with Coach Rufino at the helm is going to be the case. The next game that they have a line down for is at Miami. That line is currently -6 for the Aggies. So another game the Aggies are supposed to win. To me, that one's a little surprising. I thought Texas A&M would be favored here, but if you would have told me it's by 6 points, I'd have said, "Wow, that's a lot of points for a game that is going to be a fun one, is going to be a tight game, could be a rock fight." So to say the Aggies are going to win by a touchdown, I have the Aggies winning this game. But I do think it's going to be tight, and that's a line that I'd be a little scared to take, knowing that it's on the road. You got to go play. The environment down there isn't by any means hostile, but playing on the road's hard at any time. So I was a little surprised by that line. I knew the Aggies would be favored, but I was expecting more of like a -2.5, a -3 type of number. -6 was a bit shocking to me, but I think that there's positives you can take away there for Texas A&M and the season that the Aggies are on their way to potentially having. The next game here is Auburn at home in College Station. The Auburn Tigers are going to come to town, and Texas A&M is -8 in this game. That's a number I could have seen that go being a little bit higher. I could have seen that being a -9, -10. I think this is going to be another game. I've talked about Auburn being a team I think could shock some people, but not a team that's going to come into College Station and win in the hectic environment that is Kyle Field. So, yeah, that's a line I'm not surprised about. But I do think that Texas A&M is going to take care of business there, and I think they could win by a touchdown in the field goal, a couple touchdowns, or it could be a tight game, and that's why it's a line kind of right there at the one touchdown line. You have to decide, is it going to be less than a touchdown, more than a touchdown? But it's good to see a middle-of-the-road SEC team coming to College Station, and the Aggies are a pretty sound favorite in that game according to what's going on in Vegas right now. The next game is Texas A&M's game with Bama. That is, of course, going to be played at home as well for the Aggies. And this one was a little surprising to me, too. Bama right now, well, the line is +8 for the Aggies. Bama's an 8-point favorite. I knew that, of course, Bama was going to be favored in this game. I'm not sitting here acting like I thought Bama wasn't going to be the favorite, but I am definitely a little surprised it was 8 points. I have talked a lot about the quarterback question marks with Alabama. There's a lot of quarterback question marks in the SEC as a whole. But to me, it's a little surprising that you have an unproven quarterback, whoever it ends up being for Bama, whether it's Buckner or whoever gets the nod, that they're supposed to head into College Station and win by a touchdown. Like I said, this is a line I knew Bama would be favored, but I thought with the quarterback question marks it'd be more like by 4 points, And here's the deal. This is the type of line where, let's say Buckner gets the job. Let's say Buckner wins it, who I'm not really up to date on who's kind of leading right now, but let's say Buckner wins it for the sake of this argument. And Bama goes out first handful of games of the season and just boat races everybody. And we go, okay, yeah, it's Alabama. They're not going to struggle. They're going to be just fine. An 8-point line makes sense to me. But if they come out and Bama still, I mean, I don't see them losing any early games, but if Bama comes out and quarterback is a struggle a little bit and, you're not putting up a ton of points, I could see this line increasing a little bit in the Aggies' favor. I still believe by the time this game kicks off that Bama is going to be a favorite, but I think that line could kind of decrease as we get closer to that point in time. Next one here is at Tennessee. It's +7 for the Aggies, so Tennessee's favored in that game. To me, and same thing with like the ESPN FPI chances. You everydayers that have been tuning in, would have heard me talk about the FPI numbers, and it was the same argument I had there. I think Texas A&M has a better chance to beat Alabama at home than they do Tennessee on the road, because now I get it. Bama's defense is elite, one of the best in the country, but I still am a big believer in quarterback's the most important position on the field. If you don't have a quarterback, it's hard to win football games. Now, Alabama could have a quarterback, and we could just be wrong. I could just be wrong. But if they don't, that defense is still going to win them a handful of games, but I could see it being a game the Aggies could potentially win at home. I think the game at Tennessee is going to be more challenging. Now, the Vols lost a lot of talent to the pros. You lose Hooker, you lose Hyatt, some talented offensive weapons to the next level. But you bring back a quarterback in Milton, who, of course, when Hooker went down with the ACL tear last season, came in and impressed some people. He's got a literal cannon for an arm, and I think he's going to have a good season, but he still is unproven. We saw him. He's kind of in that same boat for me as a Conner Weigman. In reason being, we saw him last year, not a ton, enough to say these guys could be outstanding, but not enough to be like, these guys are surefire Heisman candidates and, numbers like that. So I think it's going to be harder for the Aggies to go to Neyland and play the Tennessee Volunteers in Knoxville and beat them in that game. I think they have a better chance to beat Bama at home than they do to go to Knoxville and beat Tennessee. That might be a bold take. I'll love to hear your all's opinions on that. The next game is Ole Miss, another game that the Aggies are dogs, +1 line there. So Ole Miss is, of course, favored. I think the Aggies win this football game. I do. I don't think that the Aggies are going to beat Bama or Tennessee. I don't. I think the Aggies are going to go beat Ole Miss. I'm not going to keep hitting on my thoughts on Kiffin and the quarterbacks over there, but I think that the Aggies win this game. I think that they just have a better roster. Even though it's on the road, I think they're going to go and take care of business. I could be wrong, but I think that line is a little bit tighter for a reason. The last game we're going to talk about here that there is a line already out for is at Baton Rouge playing the Bayou Bengals, and the Aggies are 10-point dogs in this game. So LSU once again favored. So I think these are the only 4 games that A&M is going to be dogs in to start the season. It'll be interesting when the rest of the lines come out. We'll break those down and see the overall schedule, run that all down. But this is another game I don't see Texas A&M going in and beating LSU at their place. I just think there's so much proven talent there. It's going to be a hard place to go win. The last line we're going to talk about is a fun one. Those of you that want to sunshine pump a little bit, let's sunshine pump. How about it? Our friends over at FanDuel put out their futures bet for the Heisman Trophy winner, which had Conner Weigman with the 23rd best odds at +6,500. 23. So there's only 23 players ahead of them. So, hey, do with that information what you want. But it's cool to see Weigman getting some, hey, this guy could be good. We're going to show that with our future Heisman bets. So there you go. Do with that information what you want. But it's cool to see these numbers coming out, these money lines and futures bets coming out. Means that we're getting close to college football, under 100 days away. So I'm already getting excited for college football in Kyle Field, in College Station. I love it. Get pumped up. We're getting close. We are really getting close, folks. The Aggies know where they're heading for the NCAA baseball tournament. Yep, the regionals came out, and the Aggies are heading to, drumroll, California. Yikes. I always hate when teams have to travel out west. I don't have a real reason for you as to why that is. I just think there's something about, playing in the different time zone and traveling across the earth and, well, not the earth, but United States. And I think it's just hard on a team, especially for an Aggie team who just played at Mississippi State. We're home for a day. Then they're in Hoover, Alabama for a whole week. So let's say what day is today? Right now when I'm recording this, it's Monday. The regional starts on Friday, so they're probably going to be home for 2 days before they have to get up and get wheels on the ground heading to California. There's just something about that I just don't like the feel of that. It is the Stanford regional. So the Aggies are heading to Stanford. Of course, the two teams in this regional that last year made it to Omaha in Stanford and Texas A&M. The other teams in this regional, San Jose State, Cal State Fullerton, and Texas A&M. So 3 California teams and Texas A&M. That's a little kind of interesting dynamic. I know they try to keep it, they try to keep it regional when possible. It's called a regional, but they try and keep teams close. So you feel bad that the Aggies are having to go all the way across the United States pretty much to get there. It's a far trip, and you hate going out west. But it's a regional. I think the Aggies can win. Of course, they'll open up the regional against Cal State Fullerton in the first game of the regional. Assuming they knock off Cal State Fullerton, they will play the winner of Stanford San Jose State, which you assume would be Stanford, in that pivotal game. So the way this works, the 1 seed plays the 4 seed, the 2 seed plays the 3 seed. The winner of each of those games moves into the second round. That second game for the 2 winners is crucial, because if you can win that game, you're automatically in the championship of the regional. And then the other teams, one team will have been sent home at that point. Then the team that you beat in the second game will play the team that won the game against the 2 losers, yada, yada. You all know where I'm getting at with this, but you save pitching. If you win the first and second game, you save pitching, which is big because the other teams are going to have to play another game before they face you. And then when they come face you, they're going to have to beat you twice. So you're going to be able to save pitching if you can win 2 games in a row. That is the biggest key. I'm sure, I don't know the statistic on it, but I'm sure the team that wins that crucial second game wins the regional more times than not. So that's going to be key for the Aggies. Beat Cal State Fullerton, take care of business against a team that I think you should beat, and then beat Stanford. You beat Stanford, I think your chances of winning the regional are about 90%. You'll have the pitching. Pitching's getting hot at the right time. You are playing well. You've got momentum on your side. There's a lot for the Aggies to see positives for this trip to California, because you just played really well against the best teams in the country. You beat LSU, you beat Arkansas, 2 teams that are better than Stanford, in my opinion. I don't think many will disagree there. So you've played the best of the best. Now you're going to play a couple of good teams. I'm not knocking these teams. They're great baseball teams, but they're not as good as LSU and Arkansas and Florida and Vandy. They're just not. So I think the Aggies are going to have a real chance to go and take care of business on the West Coast and head on to a super. Now, here is where the fun comes into play. When, of course, the way these brackets set up, there's the regional, 2 regionals. The winner of each of those regional is going to move on to play in a super regional. I wonder who is in the other regional that the Aggies could potentially play if they were able to win the Stanford regional. Some school, I think they're called the Texas Longhorns. Yeah, that could happen. Texas is in the Miami, the Coral Gables regional, playing Miami. If Texas finds a way to win that regional and A&M wins their regional, we are going to be set up for one of the most fun super regionals possible. We can all hope and dream that happens. That would be awesome. So that's what there is to be excited about for Texas A&M baseball. The first game is going to be played on Friday, I believe. Early. There'll be the early game Friday with the Stanford San Jose State game being the nightcap. So you win that game, you beat Cal State Fullerton, you beat the winner of Stanford San Jose State. I think you win this regional. It's not as, it sounds simple. It's not simple, but if you just take care of business, I think the Aggies can win this regional and set up for a date with Miami or Texas in a super regional. And then the hopes of Omaha become alive at that point. Good job by the Aggies to solidify themselves in a good spot. Hopefully they're able to go out in California and take care of some business against some California teams. We will see. But that is going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Aggies. I appreciate you all stopping by, and we will see you tomorrow.